Okay, everybody, so we're going to be looking at some more advanced boat wiring. We have determined that we know, or now know, that black is negative, red is positive, plus and minus, good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what I did on this boat to get my system set up. First things first, so make sure you got some cable crimps with you. I just have some regular pliers here. It's just what I need for right now. I used, for all my battery cable, we got 8 gauge battery marine grade wiring. And then the rest of everything else I used was 16 gauge, and that is just because the bilge pump I have, and then the LED lights, was all 16 gauge. So just better to keep all your wiring all the same to just kind of keep everything going correctly. So another thing that I did get is I have a battery on-off switch. It's a 2-pole. I didn't need more than a 2-pole. And I have a Blue Sea Systems fuse block. I had one of the cheaper knockoff versions of this. One of these Chinese. I think this one's Chinese made too, but this thing was like from Guing Flang Long or something. Some province I can't pronounce, but it was $12. I believe this was like 30 or 40. Just go ahead and get what everybody recommends. They're recommending it for a reason, and everybody in any forum I went on or came over spoke about Blue Sea Systems fuse blocks. Used it, worked great. The other one, the issue that I had is when I ran power through it, it wouldn't work. Didn't matter how I ran it, I just could not get it to work, and I just think I had a faulty fuse block. Maybe I just had a lemon, I don't know, but with it being so cheap, I'm going to have to assume that it not only was it cheaply made, it was just, there was no quality there. And obviously it's a knockoff, so quality is not an issue, it's more about quantity. The battery on-off switch, no real big manufacturer. I think it's just a regular on-off switch. That is this right here. All this does is that you turn it on, you get power from your battery into the fuse block, into your 5-gang toggle switch. Oh yes, that reminds me too. So, I also have a 5-gang toggle switch here. We have dual USBs. You got the cigarette plug-in connector there. It will tell you your DCs, your voltage, and you've obviously got 5 switches. This one's going to be a little bit different, only because I had to rewire this. On some of the connections they weren't as sound as I would have liked. Once again, this is one of those cheap ones. I actually have a Janot switch, however, I didn't like it. Mainly because I don't think it had the USB, and it definitely didn't have the cigarette port lighter there, or I don't know what it's called, the plug-in. But on this, these little switches should light on when you turn them on. Okay, but I had to do some rewiring, and the way I rewired it, these don't turn on. However, how I have it set up, it's just the same as a light switch in your home, which doesn't have a light to let you know that it's on. You click it up is on, down is off. Fairly simple. It would be very easy to just run 2 wires, and these lights would come on. I also didn't want these because they stay. Well, if you got your switch on, whatever you're powering is running, plus then that light is running, you can kind of eat your battery up real quick. I do believe the one nice aspect of the lights being lighted up, if they were lighted, if you were night fishing, you're fumbling around, did I turn that off? Oh man, the light's still on, you can click it off. However, I have the 3 hatches all have LEDs in them. I've got the bilge pump, and then the nav lights. So if you're night fishing anyways, did I turn that off? Open up your hatch. It's either going to be a big bright white light or a red light. So no, you didn't turn it off. Okay, but let's get into actually wiring this. So, what I did here is first, I took my fuse block, I mounted it. Now in this fuse block, we have a light here. Okay, we're going to use this light. On the top, we have negatives. So these are all my negative poles. On the sides here, these are all my positive poles. Your negative pole's at the top, and it is marked with a negative sign. Your positive's at the bottom, marked with a positive, obviously. This can be mounted any way you want. So if you want this mounted vertically, you can do that. You want it mounted horizontally, you can do that. It comes with 4 screws. I put in this battery switch so that way I can turn power off to my gang, my 5-gang switch. Because if you don't, it will just, even though you're not pulling power, the power is going to that. And that little voltage sign that's on there, that's being powered. That is powered that you're using. And you could have a dead battery. So this is just, if I'm not using it, I can easily turn this on and off. And it's so simple, it's just you turn it up, turn it off. I have everything mounted. This is my electronics box. So this is all, will be a waterproof hatch. It should be, hopefully. But that's where I store all my electronics. It's actually very tight. It's actually so tight that I don't even know if I'll be able to get my battery box in here, which I kind of had to modify anyways. I'm going to try to get it in there if possible, if not. But I did build in some little like side cubby holes, so I don't know what I got under some papers. I got an extra battery cable. But alright, so this is how you wire this up. We're going to start with the fuse block. So anything that you have wired, like with my nav lights, you're going to have red and black. Now on my bilge pump, the wiring is brown with a brown stripe. So your solid brown is your positive, your brown stripe is your negative. It also came with a 3rd wire, which I think was white. Can't remember. Anyways, that is for your automatic, and it was labeled for automatic running. And that is so, and I will have mine wired that way. That wire just goes directly to the battery. Skip everything else, and that way, if your float comes on, or it reaches a certain age that your float becomes activated, it automatically turns on, it pumps water out. I will also have it wired up with a switch. So for whatever reason, if the automatic part of it isn't working, or there's water in there, but it, you know, for whatever, I don't know, for whatever reason, you would think the automatics work. But let's say it doesn't, I can come up here, hit my switch, it'll pump out. When it's done pumping, I'll just have to turn it off. But that one's fairly simple to wire up. Actually, all I gotta do is connect wires. It's already mounted. So then, you're going to use red and black. Red will be your positive, black will be your negative. Your blacks will just go in on these buses here. It's these top ones, okay? Now I have 2 fuses in this, and this has 6 spots, even though I don't need 6. If I wanted to run more things to this that weren't connected to this switch, maybe they had their own on-off on electronics, maybe like a hidden LED switch, you know, for the inside there, I could wire those up into here if I wanted to. I don't feel that it's necessary for me to do that. I have enough lights on this. Alright, so you're going to take 2 8-gauge wires, these are about a foot long. I ordered 3 feet. I'm glad I did, because I just ended up cutting these in half, throwing clips on them, and then I had 2 cables. So you're going to, you know, one wire is going to your positive wire, will come out, and it will be connected to one pole into this on-off switch. Okay, there's 2 poles in there, remember? Your negative, okay, will go to the negative spot on your fuse block, and it will get connected directly to your battery. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Connect that. So slide it through the hole. This hole is actually where my switch is going to be mounted. That's the plate for it back there. I just haven't installed it on the front of the ship. Always make sure your connections are tight, because I did have a lot of problems with that. I was hand tightening stuff, not realizing that I was bumping it, the wire moved around, and then the nut came a little loose. Another thing you could do is take like a little locking ring, slide a locking ring on there, put your nut on there, tighten it down. It probably won't move after that. Alright, so now we've got the negative wired up. You're going to run the positive wire from your fuse block, use this light, right here. So this is your positive. This is going to get wired into your on-off switch for your battery switch here. Like I said, there's 2 poles. So one wire is going to that pole. The other pole, okay, this wire is actually what's going to get mounted to your battery. Do not make the mistake that I made. I watched some videos, nobody was very clear on it, or I just wasn't paying attention. I had initially mounted this negative to one of these poles. And then from that pole, I had ran another negative to my battery. And then vice versa for the positives on that. And when I turned it on, I almost caught my boat on fire, almost caught my battery on fire, melted one of the lead almost entirely off one of these poles. It was actually kind of scary. Then I figured out, because I paid a little bit more attention to a diagram, and I went, oops, I wasn't supposed to do that. So, my bad. Now, for this switch, we're not going to hook up the positive battery yet, because I'm going to talk about this switch. So, how this was initially wired, see if I can set that light. Yeah, that didn't work. All right. That didn't work. That don't work. So, how this was initially wired. Okay. There were not two sets of power wires. I put these 3 slots on their own fuse, only mainly because with the 2 USB ports, I can hook up a small speaker if I want. I can plug in, an iPod, my phone, charge it. I can get a solar-powered USB charger for my battery. I can plug it into there and just reverse the charge and plug it into that. And then I wanted all these other switches on their own fuse too. Side effect of that was, I didn't realize, is when I did that, my switches themselves, the little lights weren't going to come on. Kind of a bummer, but it happens. So what I did is I actually took all of the original wiring that was in this, cut it all out. I put new female disconnects on there for the males that are on here. And that was part of the other problem, is I kept getting intermittent powers because the female disconnects that came with this, I don't know if they were bad quality or if it just was they weren't crimped enough to get a good enough connection, but when I was separating one of these to check the connection, the whole wire actually just ripped out, and it's like, oh, so that was my problem. Now, since I've rewired them, I have no issues. But I went ahead and I've got 2 separate powers here. This is for the actual switches. These 2 are for the actual, this plug-in port and then this USB port. I put a 15 amp on the top row. There's a 20 amp on the bottom. To be honest, I really don't need a 20 amp. I would probably be fine. Bilge pump will be 5 amps. All the LEDs would be 5 amps. And the nav would be 5 amps. I'd probably be fine with 15. Actually, I think the LEDs run less. It's less than an amp per light, I believe. I only have 3 lights in here. So, we're good to go there. Now, normally how this would have been wired is that all these would have been in parallel together like they are, and then these 2 wires, your termination wires here, would actually be connected to these 2, and then they would have been ran in parallel in this, and then these 2 wouldn't have existed. Now, I could easily go up to Home Depot and get those little clip-together wire splicer deals if I wanted to, and I could clip them on this, and then clip them here, and they would actually be fine. It would be very easy to do, not hard. I don't feel that it's necessary, but, I mean, all in all, whenever it comes time to sell the boat, it might be. I could probably easily talk to somebody, and if anything, I can always just supply that. Not a big deal. But anyway, so, as on your deal here, now, this was one of the trickier parts that I really couldn't figure out. I couldn't figure out, did my switch, did it get wired to the positive pole on this fuse block, or does it get wired to just the fuse block? And as I was interpreting it, I was like, okay, well, the power's coming in. I need power to the switch, so I'm going to go ahead and wire that switch to the pole, and then on my connectors for my whatever I'm going to be powering, I'm going to connect it to that, and that is where I'm going to wire into the fuse block. That is wrong. That is not the way to do it. The correct way to do this is, so you've got your battery cable from your fuse block to your switch. This will be to your switch to your battery. Okay. Now what you're powering that switch, and you have to think of the switch as a single entity. Now the things you're powering on that switch don't really matter at this point. You just need to have a connector for those, because as soon as you power this fuse block, you connect your positive to the positive port here, and you got your negative to your negative pole on these areas, okay? Because each one of these spots down here Okay, here's your negatives, there's your positive. Each one of those spots is for a single entity. That's what we're just going to call it. I don't know what it's called, but that's what I'm going to call it. Single entity. Oh, God, it's hot in here. Okay. So, once you screw that in, you put a fuse on it. All right, we're going to set this up here. Okay, you put it in. Now, a couple things I don't want you to do. Now, when I bought this, it came with these. These are inline fuses, okay? These things suck. They get in the way, they're big, they're bulky. I didn't like them. And actually, to come to find out, a lot of people that do this for a living have said, like, hey, when you do your switches, go ahead and rewire your switch. Get rid of all your inline fuses because they suck. Get a fuse block, block it, or fuse it at the block, you're fine. Because if you're going to have a problem with your switch, your fuse block's it's just going to blow that fuse. Instead of you trying to finagle through, you know, if you've got a switch with 12, or you have 12 different switches, that's a lot of fuses to try to go through. They need a lot of fuses to go on hand. So just go ahead and you just toss those. That's trash. All right. So now we don't have to worry about that. We got rid of them. We got everything wired up. We got the power coming in. Let's go ahead and connect this up. Oh, dear God, I please hope it works. It's always like a 50-50. Slide this on. Okay. So my battery switch is off. I tighten that down. Give that a little snug. Okay, and bam! We don't have a fire. Even better. Okay, so obviously we've got power. That's what that is right there. And those light up too. Woo woo! Can't figure out why these don't light up though. See? It's very strange. So very, very strange. Anyways. Alright, so now let's find the one that's for the hatches. So now this, okay, that's now mind you, I label all of my stuff. So we can see there. So each one of my positives, and this actually will connect to the back of my switch gang there. But I know this is for my nav lights. And then I've got one of my switches there labeled for running lights because they didn't have a nav light sticker. But I know, okay, I'm just going to kind of treat it as such. But I now know that's where that goes. Actually, I need to kind of tighten that back down. There we go. Okay. Slide these through. And it should be this way. Alright, hatch lights. So we're going to take hatch lights. I've got, this says lighting. I'm going to turn this around. Which one was it? That was the second one. So my little female disconnect. Alright, so we've got a good connection. And that is on. Okay, so there you go. On. It's on. Go back here, as you can see. On. Okay, so that's that. And that is pretty much it, guys. So this also will tell you what you're running. So now we got 12.6 volts. So wiring this up is fairly simple. Obviously, if you take a look there, you can clearly see what I did. I kind of made these a little too short. Oops. And for some reason, they're like spaced out. I kind of wish like the positive, you know, would have been a little bit easier to figure out, but it's kind of weird. Yeah, but they are just a little bit too spaced out, but it works. That's the big part, is it works. And I believe, so that is it, everybody. I hope that covers your, you know, more advanced wiring there. We got a fuse block, a battery switch, and the 5-gang switch. For an automatic switch, just make sure you read what the manufacturer says. So this would be the power for my automatic. This would get wired directly to this pole. Then it would send power directly to that, and once it connects, it connects. I also use, which I didn't do that, I'll have to go get something. I use heat shrink for the most part on all my connectors. They're waterproof, they're great, it maintains, you know, if you got like a little bit of a loose connection, you can always once you shrink it, it'll be in that place, and maybe you just need to crimp it there instead of having to like cut it, get a new one type of deal. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that out because I need to fix that. All right, everybody. So that is, looks like I got